So I'm sure most of you have seen the conversation around the Cybersecurity Bill, and a lot of people are expressing cautious and mostly negative concerns around some parts of the bill. But before I even get to that, I'll briefly explain what the bill is supposed to be, because I think that overall, the intention of the bill was good. One of the things that the bill was meant to do is that it was meant to make it easier to catch fraudsters online and hackers on all those cyber crimes. Another very important part was that it was meant to protect children online, which I think is a no-brainer. Another thing that it looks like it was trying to do was trying to keep the systems that run important institutions like banks and mobile networks safe from cyber attacks. It was also meant to clean up the accreditation space so that people don't come and claim to be cybersecurity experts and then be exploiting other people's, companies and then cyber ecosystems. Another part in the bill which was very exciting, I think was very important, was that it was meant to set up security rules around things like AI, Internet of Things, and other emerging technologies. So I think that is a no-brainer. So as you can see, there are a lot of positives to the bill, and I think overall, the intention was right. But before this bill was even made popular, my main concern was that, are they even going to enforce it at all? Only for me to read, and now I'm worried that if they do indeed enforce it, it's going to be a lot of chaos because there are a lot of glaring red flags and concerns around the bill. So here are a few of the red flags, and I'll try and break it down for you to understand. So one of the big red flags is that in the bill, they stated that it was an offense to deliberately share false and misleading information to deceive and manipulate people online. Again, that sounds all good on paper, but how do you determine whether it was actually done to mislead the public? Because sitting from the outside, there's actually no way to determine with certainty that somebody posted something with the intention of deceiving people online. When rules like that are vague, it can create a lot of chaos, because then how do you handle things like satire? Or for instance, if a journalist got some information from some source and was posting it with the intention of informing the public, and then it turned out to be wrong. Again, there needs to be some protection around some of these things, because I think journalists should be free to give information to the public when it's probably important. At the same time, I don't think they should be punished if, for instance, their source was wrong. But from the way the bill puts this rule, it looks like they'll judge the intention from the output, and I think that is not entirely fair. So with these things, I think they need a tighter definition. They can limit it to harmful deception and fraud and scam. So things that are posted online that lead to harmful deception and then fraud and probably scams and all those things. And they can also add protection for public interest journalism. And of course, satire, because I think that satire is an important piece of freedom of speech. Another red flag that I saw was that the Cybersecurity Authority has gotten some level of power that I've not seen before. They set the standards and directive, they run the audits, they can also arrest, search, and seize if they see the case to be a cybersecurity case. And look, even Ghana's law does not put the lawmaking and the execution into one person's hand. And for me, the more dangerous bit is the fact that they also benefit from the fines that they themselves hand out. In that part of the bill, it says that the regulators get 50% of all the fines they hand out, plus some existing taxes like corporate tax and communication service tax. Now think about it. The same body that's investigating you is also the same body that is inspecting you and the same body that can fine you and also benefit from the fines. Look, let me not even mince words. This is conflict of interest. There was also another part which said that there was a flat price on basic cybersecurity audit, and 30% of that auditing fee would go into the cybersecurity fund. That should also be scrapped. Look, the whole idea of trying to audit lives and dies on independence. So there should be no influence whatsoever from one side to the other. And so when the regulator sets the audit price and then takes 30% of the fee, that's influence, and that independence is gone. Think about it. It's like a teacher who sets an exam and gets a bonus for every field that he gives a student. The same body that investigates and inspects the fines should not be allowed to grow his budget when the fines are handed out. And for me, I think this is just a simple fix. Separate the power from the profit. They can send the fines to a consolidated fund somewhere else and fund the authority through a normal budget that they fund the institutions from. Because again, profit and power in the same hearts and being linked like that together, it's just wrong. It's just plain wrong. Even in the executive, I think there's separation of power. So in an institution like this, it shouldn't be directly correlated. You cannot benefit from fines that you're handing out. Otherwise, it could lead to profiling. It could lead to so many problems that you don't want to get into. So I think this should be just scrapped and then restructured one way or another. There's also a couple of other red flags, like the investigators can ask a judge without your knowledge to access your data from like MTN and the service providers and your cloud service providers can also freeze your assets before they get the court confirmation to keep it. And I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Again, if you're able to catch criminals, I understand. For instance, money laundering, it moves very fast. You want to freeze the assets when it's in motion and show that as evidence to a judge so that they can, make a court case. But what happens when their suspicion is wrong? One thing that was absent from the bill was that there was no compensation if their suspicion was wrong. And I think that is just plain wrong, because if you're a business and then you have payrolls to pay and your processes rely on cash flow and they wrongly suspect you, there has to be some form of compensation. Another thing I believe would help is that if the suspicion and then an asset is frozen, there should be a time frame within which they should present it to the judge, after which if the judge doesn't give that, it goes back and the assets are unfrozen and given back to the person. Because again, if it's an important case and if there's true evidence and they show the evidence of the frozen asset to the judge can proceed to make it a court case, and then they can keep the assets frozen for an extended period. And another thing I think they should do is that they should alert the person being suspected and then provide a quick way to challenge the suspicion, because even criminals are given a quick chance to talk to their lawyers when they're arrested. So due process must apply everywhere. And as I already mentioned, if an asset is frozen and it was a false alarm, the business or whoever is involved in it should be compensated, because again, that can affect business and it would prevent the authorities from doing profiling if they suspect somebody just for no reason. So I think that will benefit both parties one way or another, and at the same time to still help them catch crimes if they're actually indeed in the wrong. Look, the truth is that we all want a safer internet. We want scammers and hackers off our networks, and I think the bill points us there. But a few parts need to be tightened before it actually becomes law. I've mentioned a lot of fixes that they can do. I think that they themselves, if they're going to look at it, a lot of people have been complaining about it. I've seen a lot of people give very, very valid, concerns about what the bill is and isn't supposed to be. And I think that if they gather all of that, I think that will make the bill better for everybody. And so if you want to help, you can just talk about it online. The more we talk about it, the more it becomes a big deal. And I think that at the end of the day, when we do that, we can keep the security without silencing people or crashing something like startups or concentrating too much power in one place, which I think shouldn't happen. I'm Michelle Manuel, and I'll see you next time.